Columbus is taking steps toward a more eco-friendly future, making room for native plants that help to support vital pollinators. Today on City Chat, Councilmember Christopher Wyche, who chairs the Columbus City Council's Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, has proposed changes to the city's weed code to make it easier to grow plants that support pollinators. Councilmember, thank you so much for joining us on City Chat today.
Thank you for having me.
Help us better understand what the issue was and now the new code that went through.
Yeah, so recently we passed changes to our noxious weed code that allowed for pollinator gardens to be developed. And I'm going to be a little selfish about this because I'm a big supporter of pollinators as a gardener. As I've said the last time I was on City Chat, I have a large garden. Pollinators help to increase the yield of the crops that we grow, and so I'm excited to get them out there. The challenge we were finding is that based on how our code was written, folks who wanted to grow gardens specifically for pollinators were not technically allowed to do so, right? Folks were getting code violations, even changes that council initiated to actually make way for pollinator gardens, like removing milkweed from our noxious weed list, wasn't done completely. And so there were issues within code that needed to be cleaned up. And so this is really an opportunity to say to the residents who want to do the right thing, who want to grow pollinator gardens, you can now do so by code. It's really an aesthetics thing. Like, we have just grown up in a society where the culture has always been turf grass. Well manicured turf grass was the symbol of a well taken care of yard. And the reality is that the impacts to our environment by having turf grass compared to having native plants in the yard are real. And we can see that effect on our pollinators, where we now have about 75 pollinator species on the endangered species list. We can see that in flooding and stormwater and how we deal with that. Turf grass has really shallow roots. They don't absorb the water as fast as we would need to kind of reduce the stormwater issues that exist out there, whereas native plants have much deeper roots. They can suck up a lot more water than they normally do. And then when we have residents coming to council to really express frustration, where they feel like they were following guidance by the city and the mayor's monarch butterfly pledge, yet still receiving violations from zoning officers because they were growing pollinator gardens. And so we wanted to really kind of take that away and kind of try to shift that narrative and shift that cultural aesthetic so that folks really kind of see these as beneficial to the environment, and giving folks a chance to do so if they want to. Now, the reality is zoning officers are still going to go out, right? If folks are making complaints, they're going to go and inspect yards to make sure that folks are following the standards that the city has set, which basically says that your pollinator garden can't encroach on your neighbor's property, it can't encroach on public sidewalks, but if you want to do something on your property, you're well within your right to do so. And so we're excited to see what happens there.
What was the code before that then, you know?
Yeah, so code actually limited grass, essentially, or eliminated certain weeds from being grown on our noxious weed list. But in addition, turf grass was kind of how everything was framed in terms of anything over 12 inches had to be cut, which really doesn't work for pollinator gardens because they can actually get pretty high. They can get up to 3 feet high, and they need to stay that way for the pollinators to lay eggs and start their life cycle over and over again.
What would the world be without bees?
It would be a very dull world for us, and one that would be challenging because our own very survival as a species, human beings, are tied to that of our pollinators. They pollinate 75% of our flowering plants and about 35% of all of our crops. And so to see those things go away, things that we like, right? This is summertime season, so all the watermelons and fruits and vegetables that are kind of grown in this time period, we would not have access to. And so that would really harm our ability to live and thrive on this planet because the very food we depend on does not have the pollinators to kind of help reproduce them.
Right. Wow, thank you for sharing that. Because I just think that not everybody really knows that or thinks about that.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear that from you. How is the city trying to balance personal yard choices besides the city code officers?
Yeah, I mean, again, everyone is at a different place in their journey of understanding sustainability and biodiversity and what that actually looks like and the importance to the world. And so this is why we kind of went through a very open and transparent legislative process, because I know not everyone is a fan of pollinator gardens, right? Some folks really do love turf grass, and we wanted to give them a chance to kind of share their thoughts, their feelings about what this is going to look like and how they would be impacted. But to kind of make that balance, zoning officers are still going out, right? If your neighbor calls and says, hey, I don't think this is a well-maintained pollinator garden, someone needs to come out and inspect, zoning officers are still going to go out there to see if the resident is actually following what we outlined in code, right?
Yeah.
Is this actual pollinator garden? Is this well-maintained? Are you actually doing this to kind of support pollinators?
Right.
You not cutting your grass and letting your grass grow to obscene heights is still not allowed by code. And so that is still going to be what zoning officers require residents to cut if they're receiving a complaint from their neighbors.
Why are native plant pollinator gardens important, and how do they support sustainability?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the outset, my office set the ambitious goal of Columbus being the greenest city in the country, right? And to achieve that, we have to ensure that we have clean air, clean drinking water, green spaces for 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line. And so for me, making this change for the noxious weed code to allow for pollinator gardens is just that step to ensuring that we have green space that is actually going to be thriving and beneficial to us all. If our pollinators go away, this is a different world in which we live in. And so the more we can do to kind of help support our pollinators, the better we are for future generations living in Columbus.
Councilmember, thank you. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, again, having an open, transparent legislative process was great. Yeah. I love seeing so many residents who, like me, cared about this issue enough to come to City Hall, to write written testimony, to publicly testify in support, advocate for changes that they wanted to see. We started with a draft. Residents said, hey, these are the challenges that this draft language would have on me as somebody who wants to grow a pollinator garden. We made tweaks based on that actual feedback. Yeah. I want people to know that advocacy is real, and your elected officials want to hear from you on legislation that we're proposing. That is the best way we can ensure that policy is going to be beneficial for everyone in the city. Yeah. Even if you don't like it, like I'm saying, come on down and yell at us and complain so that we can understand the challenges that are being presented and see if there's anything that we can do with tweaks to the code to make everyone supportive of what we're trying to do.
You know, sustainability is something that a lot of residents and me, myself, I don't really think about and see the big picture of where Columbus is going to be in 20 years. So to have you on our side and to making these changes is really, we appreciate you a lot.
Well, thank you.
I'm Josie Smith. Thanks for watching City Chat on CTV.